There is a silent prison most people live in, and its walls are not made of stone, they are made of fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment. It doesn't need chains to hold you down, it simply whispers doubts into your mind until you forget how to fly. You were not born to be afraid, you were born to explore. Yet fear convinces you that safety is wisdom and risk is danger. But tell me, what safety is there in a life half lived? Fear is nothing but a creation of the mind, a shadow that takes form through imagination. It thrives on uncertainty and grows every time you believe in the stories your mind tells you. Most of the things you fear will never happen, yet they drain your strength as if they already have. The mind projects fear like a movie, and you, unaware, keep watching it as truth. But when you stop giving those thoughts the authority to define your reality, fear loses its foundation. When you observe fear instead of reacting to it, a strange thing happens, it begins to fade. Awareness is like light, it cannot fight darkness, it simply removes it. The same way, when you see fear as it is, not as what it pretends to be, it loses its grip. Fear survives only when you resist it, when you fight it, when you hide from it. The moment you look at it directly, it becomes powerless. The mind creates fear as a form of protection, not punishment. It tries to keep you safe by limiting your steps, by making you doubt what lies ahead. But protection turns into a prison when it stops you from living fully. You must learn to guide the mind rather than obey it. When you understand that fear is trying to protect you, you can choose to thank it and then move beyond it. Courage does not mean you are fearless, it means you no longer bow down to fear. To be courageous is to walk forward even when your legs tremble, even when your heart questions your strength. Each time you act despite fear, it weakens. Each time you wait for fear to disappear, it grows stronger. The path to freedom lies not in escape, but in action. You are not your fears, you are the one who watches them come and go. Once you realize this, the storm inside quiets down. Fear becomes just another passing wave on the surface of your awareness. It may rise, but it cannot drown you anymore. The moment you stop believing that fear defines you, it becomes just a whisper in the wind, unable to command your future. Fear is born in the shadows of the mind. It feeds on the unknown, on imagination, on what could go wrong. The more you try to escape it, the more power it gains over you. Every time you react to fear, you strengthen its roots. It thrives in your resistance, in your attempts to silence it or hide from it. But fear is not something to be fought, it is something to be seen. The instant you truly see it, not as a monster, but as a movement of the mind, its force begins to weaken. Awareness is the weapon that cuts through the illusion of fear. When you observe your fear with complete clarity, it cannot deceive you anymore. It is like turning on the light in a dark room. The shadows that seemed terrifying moments ago vanish instantly. The same happens inside you. When awareness enters, fear evaporates. Awareness is not about fighting, it is about seeing clearly. When you see clearly, you understand there was never anything to fight in the first place. The mind creates fear because it believes it is protecting you. It warns you of pain, rejection, loss and uncertainty. But the mind does not know the difference between danger and discomfort. Awareness knows. It watches the reaction, understands the reason and chooses not to submit to it. When awareness leads, fear becomes silent. It has no control because you no longer act under its spell. Fear cannot exist where there is deep presence. The moment you are fully conscious, your attention is not trapped in what might happen, it is grounded in what is happening. Presence kills fear because it leaves no space for imagination to distort reality. You cannot be awake and afraid at the same time. Fear demands blindness, while awareness demands clarity. You must choose which one to serve. When you start living with awareness, fear becomes nothing more than a signal, a reminder that your attention has drifted away from truth. You see it arise, you acknowledge it, and you return to the present. There is no battle, no struggle, no resistance. Fear loses its throne the day you stop kneeling before it. In awareness, there is only freedom, and in that freedom, fear has no breath left to survive. Fear arises not to destroy you, but to protect you. The mind creates fear as a natural defense, a signal meant to keep you safe from harm. But over time, this protective instinct begins to overreach. It starts warning you not just of danger, but of possibility. It stops you from trying new things, from trusting yourself, from stepping into the unknown. What was once a tool for survival becomes a barrier to growth. The problem is not fear itself, it is the way you have started to obey it without question. When fear controls your decisions, it keeps you trapped within the limits of your comfort. You stop living freely and start existing cautiously. The mind believes it is keeping you safe, but in truth, it is suffocating your potential. The fear of failing, the fear of judgment, the fear of loss, these are not threats to your life, only to your ego. Yet the mind reacts as if you are under attack. It does not understand that growth often demands discomfort. You must train it to see that pain and danger are not the same. Fear cannot be destroyed by force, it can only be understood. When you start observing it instead of resisting it, you begin to see its true purpose. It was never meant to punish you, it was meant to alert you. But awareness must lead, not emotion. When awareness takes charge, fear becomes silent guidance rather than loud panic. It shows you where to move carefully, not where to stop completely. To master fear, you must learn to separate its message from its noise. The noise screams, "Don't go forward." The message whispers, "Be aware as you move." When you act with awareness, fear serves its real function. It sharpens your focus, increases your presence, and prepares you to handle life consciously. The same energy that once froze you becomes energy that awakens you. Once you see fear as a servant rather than a master, everything changes. You stop reacting and start directing. The mind still creates fear, but it no longer commands you. You listen, understand, and then decide with awareness. In that moment, you rise above instinct and step into intelligence. Fear remains, but it no longer rules. It becomes a quiet companion that keeps you alert while you continue to grow. Courage does not mean the disappearance of fear, it means the ability to act even when fear stands in front of you. Fear will always exist as long as the mind exists. It whispers doubts, paints failure, and builds walls of hesitation. Most people wait for fear to vanish before they begin, but that moment never comes. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be paralyzed by it. The mind shakes, the heart races, yet courage moves forward. Not because it feels safe, but because it refuses to stay small. The presence of fear shows that something important is at stake. It appears when you are about to step beyond your limits, when life demands a larger version of you. Fear tries to protect the familiar, to keep you within the boundaries of what you already know. But courage sees through that illusion. It recognizes that safety and growth cannot coexist. When you move through fear, you break the patterns that have kept you confined. Each step through fear rewrites your strength. Courage is born in the moment of decision, not comfort. It appears when everything inside you says stop, yet something deeper commands you to go on. That force is awareness. It knows that fear is just noise, not truth. When awareness leads, courage becomes effortless. It does not fight fear, it walks alongside it. You may feel the tremor, but it no longer decides for you. In that balance, you find power that is not loud, not dramatic, but steady and unshakable. Fear loses control the moment you act. Thought strengthens fear, action dissolves it. The longer you think about what might happen, the deeper fear digs its roots. But once you take a single conscious step, its voice fades. Courage grows with every movement, it does not wait for the perfect condition. Action is the medicine for fear, and every time you move despite doubt, you train your mind to obey awareness, not panic. Courage is not something to search for, it is already within you, waiting for acknowledgement. It reveals itself when you stop arguing with fear and start walking through it. Life does not reward those who wait for fear to leave, it rewards those who walk with trembling hands and steady hearts. Fear may walk beside you, but it no longer commands the path. Courage becomes your direction and movement becomes your freedom. You are not what you think, you are the one who witnesses the thinking. Thoughts arise, move through the mind and disappear. Yet something within you remains unchanged, silently observing them all. When fear appears, it says, "I am scared," but that voice is not you. It is only a sound within your awareness. The mistake is in believing that every thought is a reflection of who you are. The moment you attach your identity to it, you become trapped in its movement. The one who observes never fears, only the thought does. When you begin to see the distance between the watcher and the thought, a new kind of freedom appears. You realize that emotions and fears are visitors, not residents. They come, they stay for a while, and then they leave. Awareness is the space in which they appear, and that space is untouched by what passes through it. This understanding breaks the illusion that fear can define you. You are not the storm, you are the sky that holds it. The mind's greatest deception is convincing you that its noise is your voice. It throws endless thoughts of doubt, anxiety and insecurity, and you obey them as if they were orders. But awareness listens without obeying. It allows the thought to pass without resistance or belief. Once you see a thought as separate from yourself, it loses its grip. It no longer pulls you into reaction because you know it has no authority over who you are. The practice of watching thoughts requires silence and stillness. When you sit quietly and observe the mind without judgment, you begin to see how thoughts appear automatically. You are not creating them, they are just happening. In that seeing, the illusion of control fades. Fear may still arise, but it cannot dominate you because you no longer identify with it. You recognize that fear is an event in consciousness, not your essence. When this realization becomes clear, peace replaces panic. Fear might still visit, but it cannot stay. You see it for what it is, just a passing wave on the surface of awareness. The depth of who you are remains calm and steady beneath it. This is true freedom, to feel everything but to be owned by nothing. The moment you stop saying, "I am afraid," and start seeing, there is fear, the chains of the mind break completely. The unknown frightens people not because it is dangerous, but because it is uncertain. The mind feels safe only when it can predict what will happen next. Anything beyond its understanding becomes a threat. This is why people cling to the familiar, even when it limits them. The unknown exposes how little control the mind truly has, and that loss of control creates fear. But the unknown itself carries no harm, it is simply untouched territory waiting to be experienced. The danger exists only in the imagination that refuses to see beyond its own patterns. The moment you step into what you do not know, the illusion begins to break. What seemed terrifying from a distance turns out to be simple, often beautiful once you face it directly. Fear grows stronger in hesitation, but the instant you take a step forward, it begins to shrink. The unknown does not punish those who explore it, It reveals itself only to those who dare. Growth has always come from walking into the space where certainty ends. Every discovery, every breakthrough, every act of courage begins where comfort stops. When you resist the unknown, life becomes stagnant. The same thoughts repeat, the same emotions recycle, and the same experiences return again and again. The mind pretends this repetition is safety, but in truth it is slow decay. To live fully means to step into what you cannot predict, to allow the flow of life to move without interference. The unknown is not chaos, it is pure potential. Within it lies everything new that existence has to offer. The only way to transform fear of the unknown is through direct experience. No amount of thinking can prepare you for what you have never known. The mind must surrender to action, to presence. Once you experience what you feared, it no longer holds power over you. The same darkness that once scared you becomes familiar, and familiarity turns it harmless. You realize that fear never lived in the unknown. It lived in your refusal to meet it. To walk into the unknown is to trust life itself. Trust that existence is not against you, that every new step reveals more of your strength. The unknown tests you, not to destroy you, but to awaken you. When you stop resisting it, life begins to unfold in its full depth. Fear loses its meaning because nothing is truly unknown anymore. There is only experience revealing itself moment by moment. Every fear carries within it a message that most people never hear. It is not there to destroy you, but to reveal a part of yourself that you have not yet understood. When fear appears, it shows you the exact point where your awareness stops and your conditioning begins. It marks the boundary between what you know and what you still need to awaken to. Most people run from fear, but running only keeps the lesson hidden. The moment you pause and look into it, you start to see that fear is not an obstacle, but a mirror reflecting the places within you that still need light. Avoiding fear keeps you small. Every time you turn away from something that frightens you, you strengthen the illusion that you are weak. But when you face it, you discover strength that was already there. Fear becomes a doorway to deeper understanding. It shows you your attachments, your insecurities, your need for control. When you face fear consciously, it strips away everything false and leaves behind only what is real. The lesson is not in the fear itself, but in what it reveals about you. Each fear points toward something valuable you have refused to see. The fear of failure hides the need for perfection. The fear of rejection hides the hunger for approval. The fear of loss hides attachment. When you look at fear through awareness, it begins to unravel. The deeper you examine it, the smaller it becomes. It was never about the situation outside you, it was always about your relationship with it. Fear is a teacher that uses discomfort to direct your attention inward. Transformation begins when you stop labeling fear as negative. The energy of fear is raw and powerful. It becomes destructive only when you suppress it. When faced directly, it turns into clarity. The trembling of fear can become the vibration of awakening. What you once called fear is simply energy seeking to move, to evolve. If you let it flow through awareness, it becomes strength. If you resist it, it becomes suffering. The choice lies in how deeply you are willing to see. Every fear is an invitation to wake up from sleep. It challenges your false sense of safety and forces you to grow beyond comfort. The lesson hidden in fear is that you are far greater than your reactions. Once you understand this, fear no longer feels like an enemy, it becomes a path toward consciousness. Facing fear is not about becoming fearless, it is about becoming free. And freedom comes only when you learn from what once tried to control you. Fear grows stronger through thought. The more you think about what could happen, the more space you give it to expand. The mind turns every possibility into a story, and those stories become heavy chains. You imagine failure, rejection, or loss long before any of them exist. Thought magnifies fear and feeds it with endless details. But fear cannot survive movement. The moment you act, the endless cycle of thinking breaks, and the energy that was trapped in hesitation begins to flow again. Action has a power that thought does not. Thinking creates hesitation, movement creates clarity. The mind can imagine 1,000 outcomes, but reality unfolds only when you step into it. Even a single conscious step weakens fear because it replaces imagination with experience. You begin to see that what you feared was never as solid as it seemed. Action reveals truth, and truth destroys illusion. The moment you do what fear told you not to do, its control begins to collapse. Fear depends on delay. It needs you to pause, to reconsider, to analyze. Every second of waiting gives it strength. But once you move, fear has nothing to hold on to. Movement shifts attention away from the mind stories and brings it back to the present moment. In action, there is no space for fear to speak, there is only the immediacy of what is happening now. When you move with awareness, the mind follows instead of leading, and fear begins to dissolve in silence. Action does not have to be grand, even the smallest step holds power. One word spoken, one choice made, one moment of courage changes everything. You don't overcome fear by waiting for confidence, you build confidence by acting despite fear. Movement itself is transformation. Each time you take action, your mind learns that fear is not danger and your awareness becomes stronger. What once paralyzed you turns into a source of energy, pushing you forward. When you live through action instead of thought, fear loses its foundation completely. The mind no longer controls your choices because it is no longer your master. You move because awareness commands it, not because fear allows it. In that rhythm, life becomes fluid and fearless. The energy that once sustained fear turns into momentum. The cycle of hesitation breaks and action becomes your natural state of freedom. Fear writes invisible boundaries around your life. Each time you hesitate because of it, you give away a piece of your freedom. It convinces you that safety lies in staying still, but stillness born out of fear is nothing but slow decay. When fear rules your decisions, your potential remains buried beneath layers of doubt and hesitation. The future is not something that happens to you. It is something you create through the courage to act. Every choice made in fear builds a prison, every choice made in awareness builds a path forward. The future takes shape in the smallest moments, not in the grand plans you make. Every time you silence your inner voice because fear whispers louder, you drift further from your true direction. Fear does not stop time, but it freezes your growth within it. You may think you are waiting for the right moment, but what you are really doing is watching opportunities dissolve in front of you. The world moves forward, yet fear keeps you standing still, convincing you that tomorrow will somehow bring courage that today could not. Fear always disguises itself as protection. It tells you not to risk, not to trust, not to change. It pretends to keep you safe but only keeps you small. The walls built to protect your heart soon become the walls that trap your spirit. Every time you listen to fear, you trade the unknown possibilities of life for the known misery of comfort. There is no security in fear, only stagnation. True safety lies in awareness, not avoidance. The moment you see fear clearly, its power begins to crumble. Growth only begins when you challenge fear's authority. Each step you take, despite trembling legs, breaks a part of its hold. The future bends for those who refuse to be stopped by what frightens them. Fear cannot control a mind that moves with purpose. Once you realize that fear cannot touch the core of who you are, it loses all its dominance. You become capable of shaping your path through clarity instead of compulsion. The same energy that once chained you becomes the fire that drives transformation. Your future is being shaped in every second of hesitation and every act of courage. Fear will always knock, but it has no power unless you open the door. Life expands for those who move through fear instead of waiting for it to vanish. The only future that truly belongs to you is the one created by conscious action, not fearful reaction. When you choose awareness over fear, you stop surviving and start creating. That is the moment destiny begins to move with you, not against you. When you trust your awareness, fear loses its ground completely. Most fear arises from doubt in your own perception, from the belief that you cannot handle what comes next. But awareness is far more intelligent than fear will ever be. It sees clearly without panic or distortion. Trusting your awareness means allowing life to unfold without forcing outcomes or running from uncertainty. The moment you stop fighting what is, you begin to move with the rhythm of life instead of against it. In that alignment, fear no longer finds a place to exist. Inner trust is not built through belief, it is built through experience. Each time you listen to your awareness instead of your fears, you strengthen that trust. You begin to see that awareness always leads you toward clarity, even when the mind cannot understand it. The more you follow it, the more courage becomes natural. You no longer wait for perfect conditions because you understand that awareness itself is your greatest safety. Life becomes lighter when you stop doubting your own intelligence. When inner trust grows, dependence on control begins to fade. Fear thrives in control. It wants every outcome predicted, every risk avoided. But the nature of life is uncertainty, and control is an illusion that breeds tension. Trust dissolves that tension. You start to act from a space of calm confidence instead of desperation. Even when challenges appear, you no longer feel broken by them because you know they are part of your growth. Awareness doesn't need the future to be certain, it only needs you to stay present and awake. This inner trust transforms the way you see yourself and the world. You stop interpreting every obstacle as a threat and start seeing it as a test of consciousness. Life stops feeling like a battlefield and starts to feel like a teacher. The moments that once made you anxious become moments of learning. Every experience, pleasant or painful, begins to serve your awakening. The energy that once went into fear turns into clarity and inner strength. Freedom is not the absence of problems, it is the absence of fear in facing them. When your trust in awareness becomes unshakable, nothing outside you can disturb your peace. You are no longer ruled by circumstances, opinions or outcomes. You live from the center of stillness that fear can never touch. This is not blind confidence, it is knowing that life itself flows through you and that awareness will always show you the way. In that knowing, fear ends and freedom truly begins. Fear is not your jailer, it is only a shadow following your light. The question is not how to destroy fear, but how to stop worshipping it. The moment you stop giving fear your attention, your energy returns to creation, to possibility, to life itself. The future is not waiting to be feared, it is waiting to be lived. Walk into it boldly, not because you are fearless, but because you finally understand that fear was never real,